Yo, what's up, guys? We're back to break down another UFC fight card. This week we got a big one. We got UFC 302. We got the lightweight title on the line. The undisputed champion Islam Makhachev. He's going to be defending the belt against longtime fan favorite Dustin Poirier, and this is going to be Dustin Poirier's second and likely final opportunity to become undisputed world champion. So, a lot's on the line in the main event. A lot's on the line throughout the whole card. I'm definitely excited to break it down. We got Strickland on the card. We got some other pretty cool matchups. So it should be a fun night of fights, and going to be here to give you guys some of the best predictions, some of the best breakdowns on the internet. Along with today's video, we're going to be going live on Friday. Me and a couple other guests are going to be joining me on the channel. We're going to be talking UFC 302, get a couple more opinions for you guys, talk a little bit more on the betting side of things, maybe give you a free bet or two. So definitely make sure to come check it out live, 9 p.m. Pacific time, 12 p.m. Eastern time, Friday night. You can get all your questions answered. You can maybe get a free bet or two. So definitely worth coming over, checking that out. Would really appreciate you guys coming and talking in the live chat. And besides that, man, if you want access to some different content, you know, if you're into Bellator, you're into the PFL, or even none of these lower level promotions, more regional promotions like Anthony Pettis FC, A1 Combat, a couple of shows that just happened this past weekend. If you go to patreon.com/MPredictionGuru, you're going to get content of those promotions, predictions. You're going to get some bets. We made some money last week on the Patreon, even though there was no UFC. We were able to cash on a regional show and make some money, so it's always good. And we've been doing really well this year with our bets. We've been I believe I have like 11% ROI on the year, so doing really well. Going to be looking to continue that streak into this week and continue to make more cash throughout the year. So definitely check out patreon.com/MPredictionGuru if that's something you're into, and it helps support the channel, helps keep the channel going, and definitely is worth it, I believe. So go check that out. And besides that, man, hit a like button on this video, put a comment down below. Let's try to get some engagement. And let's get into these predictions. And so the first fight of the night, we got a flyweight fight. It's going to be Andre Lima taking on Mitch Raposo. And both these guys don't have a lot of UFC experience. This is going to be the debut in the UFC for Mitch Raposo. He had a fight on the Contender Series that didn't go his way and is getting this opportunity here. And for Andre Lima, he did have one UFC fight, and he actually had a pretty solid performance. It was a fun back-and-forth fight, but the thing that everyone remembers really from that matchup now at this point is the fact that his opponent got DQ'd for biting and kind of took away from both fighters' performances that night. But Lima's going to be looking to get another win, move to 2-0 in the UFC, and this time have a more definitive outcome for himself. But you look at how these guys fight stylistically. Mitch Raposo, he's a speedy wrestler. He has quickness and tries to be evasive, feint level changes, then come in with 1-2s or 1-1-2s. And recently he's shown a little bit more power. He's been sitting down on his right hand a little bit more. And the fighters he's been fighting, though, have been a little bit chinny and inexperienced, so hard to take too much into account with that, but he has been getting some knockouts. Raposo, when he's backed up, I still don't think is the greatest striker. He wants to be all the way in or all the way out and tries to catch guys as they come in with a big shot or dart in and catch them with a big shot, but he doesn't want to sit in the pocket and exchange. He doesn't throw very many kicks, but his last fight he did use a head kick to drop his opponent and finish the fight, so obviously he does have them in his arsenal. One thing about Raposo is he does stand heavy on that lead leg. I haven't really seen him fight many kickers, so that could be an issue for him going forward. To me, you have to pressure Raposo and look to push the pace. Raposo, he just uses a lot of energy to go in, go out of range, and throw hard shots. So he does tend to get tired if the fight's him going backwards a lot. And when he can come forward, control the pace, he's tough to beat. He's hard to hit. His cardio will be there. So you have to make it an ugly fight. And Raposo wants to be touched and moving and being in a more pretty fight. But he's a wrestler as well, Mitch Raposo, so he has fast level changes. He has a few submission wins, but he isn't much of a grappler, and more recently he's been striking in his fights primarily. He did a decent job in certain fights I've seen of blending his takedowns, so he has that ability, but seems like he's not the most comfortable on the ground. Like, I've seen him stand up from inside guys' guards, and I don't think he is the greatest grappler. And we saw that in the fight with Jake Hadley as well. Hadley was able to back Raposo up and then take him down, took his back and submitted him pretty easily. So I think putting Raposo on his back could be a future game plan that opponents look to implement. But the guy that he's going to be fighting, Andre Lima, is a pressure Muay Thai fighter. He's tall for flyweight, and he has some nice kicks, good straight punches. Lima stands really upright, and he's pretty flat-footed, but standing so tall gives him the ability to kick freely and pull and counter. He has really good get-ups and a decent takedown defense game. He brings calm pressure. He waits fighters to throw, and then he comes with the straight punches, elbows, knees. His kicks are effective on the outside, so he's definitely hard to deal with on the feet. He has solid power. He does a lot of shelling up and then returning, so I do think attacking the body is something you could do on Lima. Lima's difficult to knock out or hit to the head, so I think Raposo is going to have a little bit of trouble because he's a headhunter. You could also try to be evasive and in and out on Lima, which is definitely going to be Raposo's game plan. Raposo's going to need to have the cardio to move for 15 minutes because I don't think Lima's getting knocked out. So for Lima, he does have the ability to hurt Raposo to me, and I think he's going to be the better striker down the stretch as the fight gets longer. So he's just going to have to make sure to be smart early, avoid that big power from Raposo, and just keep walking him down and doing damage. If Lima is struggling with the movement, I think he should close the gap and clinch, and he should be able to get the body lock takedowns. I think he can, and if he can get on top, he has a chance to finish. He's the more effective grappler. I think he's the more physical fighter, and I trust Lima's cardio in a more grueling fight more than I do Raposo, so I don't expect Raposo to want to wrestle because Lima should have the submission and physicality edge, and I think Andre Lima should get the win here, and I feel like he should finish in the second or third round. Raposo could start fast, and if he finds the range and has the cardio, he could pull off a decision, but I think Lima's going to get the leg kicks off, get some good counter punches off, make Raposo tired going backwards, and I think if Raposo tries to wrestle, he'll get reversed, get submitted. If it stays standing, I think Lima can march him down and finish him with strikes or club and sub him. So I'm going to go with Andre Lima here, and I think he's going to get it done inside the distance. And in the first female fight of the card, we got Aline Perez taking on Jocelyn Edwards, and this is a bit of a grudge match. If you remember, before Aline Perez's last fight, her and Jocelyn had some sort of altercation at the UFC PI where even Perez's coach got involved, and it was a whole ordeal, and it actually gave Perez that black eye going into the fight with Lucy Pudilova, which ended up being pretty bad towards the end of that fight. So it was funny. Jocelyn Edwards, honestly did more damage than Pudilova did to Aline Perez that week. But they're finally going to get in the cage. They're going to settle their differences, and someone's going to come out the winner. But both these girls, I guess you could say Aline Perez, 2-fight winning streak. She's in a little bit better position, but they're kind of both in the same spot in the weight class. They're still kind of trying to prove that they're top 15 level. So the winner of this fight is going to get a bigger opponent next, and we'll see what happens. But Edwards, pretty high-level athlete, but I feel like she relies on her athleticism more than her skill level and hasn't shown a lot of improvements, which I don't like to see, especially because she's training with pretty good camps. She was with Extreme Couture, I believe now, and she was with Kings MMA also, I believe. So, but she seems like she has kind of a similar skill set. She's dangerous on the feet. She throws nice kicks, straight punches. She has some power. She has some speed. She'll sit down on the 3-2s, but she doesn't have very good footwork, so fighters can get in on her, and her wrestling is not very good. That's going to be a problem in this fight because Perez is going to bring a heavy dose of wrestling. I will say Edwards in her last fight, her judo was a little bit better, and she was able to get some clinch takedowns on Nora Konal, who's more of a striking-only fighter. But it showed some evolution for Edwards, better fight IQ. But Perez she's going to be shooting on the legs, which I think Edwards has a lot more issues with takedowns on the legs, and I feel like she's not going to be able to put Perez on her back or even try. So it's going to be more on Edwards having to defend the takedowns or getting back to her feet when she does get taken down and using her kicks. But she can sometimes explode and sweep and scramble. But I feel like if Perez could start taking her down, Edwards is kind of a fish on her back. She just lays there. Her last fight, she fought a kickboxer, like I said, so went a little bit better for her in the grappling. But I feel like that's definitely not a place she wants to be here. Her cardio isn't the greatest either when she's forced to grapple, so that's another thing. And I think she has issues with the weight cut. I don't know if she's big for the division. I think she is, she does go up pretty high. 151 after 135. But she's missed weight twice, so that's definitely something that could be an issue here for her. But Aline Perez, she's a grinder, big strong legs, big double leg, kind of has that wide bladed stance on the feet, and she's definitely the better mover. She's going to be trying to move around and then pull Edwards into the blast double. She should be prepared to defend and use the kicks of Edwards to get takedowns. That's going to be something on tape that you definitely see Edwards using a lot is her kicks. But Perez, she doesn't have a ton of power, but she has a decent right hand. She throws some kicks. If this fight stays standing, it certainly favors Edwards. Edwards is going to have the more volume and power. Perez also doesn't like getting hit. I don't feel like the most. But Perez is really strong, and if she gets on top, that's her world. She's going to try to get to half guard, stay heavy, throw that short ground and pound, force Edwards to make mistakes. And Perez overall just has good top control. She gets on top. She could probably maintain position. And she has no problem just smothering her opponent and winning a round with top control. Her last fight, she did gas out bad in the third round, which that was a little bit troubling to see, but I think in this fight, she's going to have better cardio. She's going to have something to prove. It's kind of like I said, a fight where these girls don't like each other. As long as Perez can get the takedowns, which I think she's going to be able to, she's going to win this fight. She can't let Edwards use her judo to reverse and put her on her back or keep it standing. But I just feel like Perez is probably too explosive. She's going to be able to get in on the legs, get the doubles, and the line's probably correct, though, so I don't see a ton of value in terms of betting in this fight. Edwards' style, has given her some close decisions. She has flashy moments, and although they didn't give her a last decision, I thought she won. She's kind of dangerous enough for me to probably say lay off her betting against her and going with Perez. But I'm also not confident with Edwards either, so the decision win for me is going to go to Aline Perez, but probably a stay-away fight. And continuing through the card here, we got Mickey Gall taking on Basil Hafez in this fight. And interesting fight. Mickey Gall, he's making his comeback. He hasn't fought for over 2 years, but looks like he's still been training, staying involved with the sport during the layoff. He just hasn't been competing. And definitely probably needed some time off to reset. He lost 3 out of 4. He got knocked out in his most recent loss, and at 32 years old, there's still probably a lot of time for him to get wins and have some fun memories, but needs to get back on track here now. And Mickey, big guy for the weight, tries to use his length to his advantage. He has a decent jab. He has a good power right hand, but, he's just not the most fluid striker. He will slip the jab, come over the top with the right hand. He has decent pressure. On the inside, you'll throw some uppercuts, elbows, but usually only maintains his power for about a round, and then he gets tired. And defensively, he floats his chin. He doesn't move his head. I don't feel like it seems like he likes being hit that much either. So, overall, I just think he needs to improve his striking. Maybe he has during this layoff, but he has pretty high-level grappling. He just doesn't have great wrestling to get it to the ground, and then he tends to get tired, and he'll try to go for low percentage submissions, fall to his back, accept bottom position, and that's why he's gotten finished by guys like Diego Sanchez or gotten held down by Mike Perry and things like that. But Basil Hafez's opponent, this is going to be his second UFC fight, and he's going to be looking for his first win. He did impress in his UFC debut. He lost, but fought Jack Della Maddalena, who's a top 5 fighter in the world, went to split decision. It was a short notice fight as well, so he showed off his high-level wrestling and his grappling and proved he can compete, so now he has the opportunity to beat Mickey Gall and kind of prove that he's a UFC-level fighter. Mickey Gall has 6 UFC wins, so he definitely isn't a pushover. And a lot of the time, these fighters like Hafez who get hype off a close loss in their debuts to an established fighter tend to struggle or lose as big favorites in their second UFC fight. So Hafez can't fall into that trap. He just has to be smart. He already has a win over Mickey Gall in a grappling match about a decade ago, so he just can't get overconfident here and think this is going to be a walk in the park. But he's a grinder, Hafez. He's explosive, good double leg, obviously good jiu-jitsu, good top control. His cardio is pretty good, in other fights. I've seen him push the pace with his wrestling, but he can get sloppy sometimes and get fatigued. He fights through fatigue pretty well, but we saw in certain fights he has gotten tired. But he's a stiff striker, but he could switch stance. He's tough. He'll eat a shot to give a shot. He has power hooks, crosses. And I think he's going to want to try to push the pace versus Gall. He gassed versus Jack Della, but he's going to be in better shape this time with more time to prepare. And I feel like Hafez should win with his pressure combinations in wrestling, and I think he's going to have the cardio advantage, the wrestling advantage. The stand-up, it's going to be pretty 50-50, but I think Hafez is going to be pressuring. And if he doesn't get rocked, which he's probably more durable than Gall, he's going to be able to compete on the feet. Gall's a chance in round 1 to land big or catch a submission, but I think Gall's kind of first round or bust. But so Hafez could potentially win via finish. He can win in rounds 2 or 3, or he could take a decision. So I'm going to predict a decision win here for Hafez, and I think he's going to get his first UFC win. And moving on to the feature prelims, the first fight we got kicking them off is Nico Price and Alex Morono. A rematch of a fight Nico Price won via knockout in 2017. The fight is a no contest because Nico Price tested positive for weed, but in reality, Price won. Morono was dominating up until the point he got caught. He got a couple of knockdowns. He was piecing Price up. So I'm sure Morono's chomping at the bit to atone for that mistake. And Nico Price is going to have a little bit more confidence, even though he's on a losing streak, knowing that he has beaten Morono and knocked him out before. Nico obviously isn't in the best form right now. He's lost 3 out of 4. He's coming in here off of a layoff after a quick knockout loss to Robbie Lawler. And he hasn't won a fight since October of 2021. So Nico definitely has fallen on hard times a bit, whereas Alex Morono, since their loss, has done really well. He's been able to pick up quite a few wins in the UFC, get some of the highest level wins that he's had. He's been 11-6 since that fight with Nico Price, whereas Nico Price has been 6-7-1. So big difference in their careers since then. And we'll see if Morono can get that win back as well. But if you watch that first fight, the first round of the first fight was a 10-8 for Morono. He barely even got touched. He knocked down Price in the middle of the round, then again at the very end of the round. Price did come back in round 2, and I thought he was still losing, but he was landing the right hand more. And he eventually got Morono to start exchanging with him. You could tell Morono was getting tired, and Morono got backed up and knocked out while he was up against the cage. And Morono has had to have learned from that loss, because if he didn't brawl and he kept his movement and composure, he would have easily won that. I think if he comes in here with a little bit more cardio and a little bit more sharpness, it's his fight to lose. And he's the much cleaner striker. He's gotten better at not brawling, maintaining his cardio over 3 rounds. And Nico Price, it's fair to say, he's regressed since that fight. His durability isn't at the same level as it was back then. You look at Morono, and he's teamed up with Fortis MMA. He's engulfed himself in the sport. He's a commentator for Fury FC. And Nico Price, he's gone from training at more high-level gyms with higher-level training partners to training with lower-level fighters. And I feel his preparation is probably lacking. Price is the fighter who's had a full camp for this fight, whereas Morono's coming in on relatively short notice, so that does give Price a slight advantage. But either way, I don't think Nico Price is going to win minutes in this fight, and if Morono can maintain his cardio, keep the distance, he should dominate, if not knock Price out. Nico is more athletic, explosive. He's the longer, bigger guy. He has that one-shot ability to change a fight, which we saw him use to win the first time against Morono. But I don't see either fighter looking to wrestle here. If Price does wrestle, I think there's a good chance he gets submitted. Morono's grappling has been looking really slick recently. Even though Morono can get taken down and held down, I don't think Nico Price is going to be the guy to do that. The prediction has to be Morono here for me. He's been more active. He's been more successful. Price may have lost a big piece of what made him special as a fighter, and that's his chin. Got KO'd in 36 seconds his last fight. He's absorbed a ton of damage throughout his career. And the line is not good for Morono, though. Morono's a fighter you usually would want to back when he's the underdog, not the favorite. And in this case, he's an over 2-1 favorite. I'm not saying the line isn't somewhat warranted, but I think with Morono's history versus punchers of getting knocked out, coming in on short notice for Morono as well, the line should be a little bit tighter. But Morono's going to win this is my prediction. And I'll say he wins via second round KO, TKO. Until Nico can prove to me his chin is there, he has to absorb damage to win fights with his style, and I just don't think he's going to be able to take the shots anymore. So give me Morono to win this one inside the distance. And up next here, Phil Rowe versus Jake Matthews. Really don't like this fight. Two flakes to me, two guys who are really untrustworthy, but Phil Rowe, he couldn't pass the Neil Magny test last June. He dropped a close split decision to the veteran, and it's been almost a year since that fight, so Rowe's had some time to lick his wounds, get back to the drawing board, try to come back strong here. And he has Jake Matthews in front of him. And this kind of Rowe's chance to look good and get another crack at the top 15. He's 33 years old, so he should be relatively in his prime, and the time to make a run is now. Jake Matthews, he's been in the UFC forever, but he's still only 29 years old and kind of has been up and down, winning a fight, losing a fight since 2020. His last fight, he lost to Michael Morales, so you'd think he's due for a win here. He hasn't lost 2 in a row since 2016, so going to be looking to bounce back. And this is going to be his 20th UFC fight. So Matthews, very experienced guy, but I just don't like this fight. Phil Rowe, he's a guy that's never won a decision. I think he's 0-4 or 0-3 in decisions or something like that. And you could tell from watching a fight, I mean, the guy just doesn't have a lot of urgency. Very composed fighter. Someone that does a good job of, even when he's hurt, seems like he's a slow starter. He has to get hit early, take damage, and then come back. But even when he gets rocked, gets hurt, he's good at surviving, staying calm, and then getting back into the fight. And he's decent everywhere. I mean, the guy is hittable and kind of awkward striking style, but when he lets his hands go, he has really crispy hands. He has power. He throws 1-2s, throws nice 1-2-3 combinations. That left hook he has is pretty nasty, and his length is something that is a big factor. And Jake Matthews has struggled with long fighters, guys with good reach advantages over him, so that's something that Phil Rowe does have. And basically, Rowe, it's like he's losing the majority of his fights the entire time, and then he unleashes one of these big combos. He could rock his opponent, finish him with one shot. And if guys come in there with the wrestling game plan on Rowe almost lets him take him down early. Seems like his wrestling defense has gotten a little bit better more recently, but usually he doesn't have the best takedown defense. But he has a good guard. He does a lot of jiu-jitsu competitions and definitely works a lot in his grappling. He trains with Fusion XL, which is a high-level grappling gym. And he can nullify a lot of stuff with his guard. He's gotten some guard submissions over some lower-level fighters. But he can lose fights off of his back. But also, if guys take him down, and he kind of mitigates the damage and extends the fight, they could get tired, shoot a sloppy shot. That's where you see Phil Rowe maybe snatch a front choke or get that finish with his hands down the stretch on a tired guy. So Rowe's basically a guy that comes very composed and is an opportunistic finisher when he sees his moment. He's athletic, has power, and he has a submission threat. But if he doesn't get that finish, it's going to be a frustrating night for anyone that backs him, because Jake Matthews could just go in there, pressure him, take him down for 3 rounds, lay on him. Phil Rowe could not get the submission off, and Jake Matthews gets the win. Or Jake Matthews could walk him down, throw more volume on the feet, land leg kicks, and get the win that way. So I feel like it's a close money line for a reason. Jake Matthews, I just can't trust him to get takedowns, man. The guy has not been wrestling in his recent fights. He hasn't gotten more than 1 takedown in a fight in a long time. So I feel like if he comes in here with a more striking game plan with Rowe's eventually going to catch him with a big shot. And Jake Matthews is pretty durable. I mean, the guy doesn't really get finished with strikes. So I feel like he might get rocked and then jump into a submission. Or maybe even Phil Rowe could get his first decision win here. But it's a pass for me. I see people are confident in Rowe as the underdog, but for me, I just don't have a lot of interest in this one. Another fight here where I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this one. I don't think the UFC is putting these two guys together because they have pretty strong records in the UFC, and they're both kind of boring. They're like, maybe the loser of this one, we can cut them. I don't know. I mean, maybe not. I know Grant Dawson has a really good record in the UFC. They both have solid records, but I feel like it's kind of that type of matchup. You know, one of these guys is going to lose and get relegated pretty majorly or be cut type of thing. 2 grapplers that like to take the back. And Joe Zaleski has gotten some slick submissions. He's probably the better overall finisher on the ground with submissions, but Dawson definitely has the better top control. He's the longer guy. He's the more dynamic guy, in my opinion. On the feet, neither fighter is very good. I mean, and their durability for both is questionable. I mean, both just got knocked out in the first round. I think Dawson is the better striker. You know, he's going to have the length. He's going to be a little bit faster. He throws a little bit more weapons. You know, he has that knee up the middle. He has longer punches, whereas Joe Zaleski really only throws that left hook. Haven't really seen a lot of Grant Dawson on his back. So if Selkec could take him down, get into some advantageous positions, that's going to be something we haven't really seen from or with Grant Dawson. But we have seen Joe Zaleski on his back, and he tends to just lay there. He doesn't really have great get-up game, hasn't threatened too much with the submissions. So I feel like if Grant Dawson can get on top, he definitely could ride it out. And on the feet, I slightly favor Dawson as well. But the line is a little bit wild. I mean, to have Dawson as that big of a favorite, don't necessarily agree with that. If it stays standing and is a really sloppy, low-level, low-volume striking fight, I mean, maybe it could play out closer to pick'em. But I feel like Dawson is probably going to win it fairly clearly. It's just coming off that quick knockout loss to Bobby Green like that. I don't think he's definitely... The line isn't warranted him being that big of a favorite, but I think Dawson will and should get the job done, so I'm going to predict Dawson to win a decision. And closing out the main card, we got a Strikers Delight matchup on paper with Cesar Almeida taking on Roman Kopylov. Cesar Almeida, he's coming back really quick. He just fought like 6 weeks ago against Dylan Budka, won. That was his UFC debut. Totally different opponent in that one, where he fought a wrestler, a guy that was trying to take him down the whole fight. He got taken down a couple times, but showed good get-ups against the cage, and eventually TKO'd a tired opponent in the second round. For Roman Kopylov, he had his I think he had a 5-fight knockout streak, if I'm not mistaken. Could have been 4, could have been 5, but either way, he was on a nice little run, and had that snapped in his last fight against Anthony Hernandez, where it was a big-time fight. The winner of that one was probably going to get a top 10 matchup, and Kopylov just couldn't handle that pressure that Hernandez brings to guys. Hernandez drowned him and submitted him, but obviously Cesar Almeida is a totally different style matchup here, and we'll see what this fight's going to look like. But Cesar Almeida, 5-0 in MMA, so obviously he has really limited experience he can go off of from his MMA fights, but extensive kickboxing background. You'll hear the people talk about the Alex Pereira fights, even though those were 10 years ago at this point, so I don't think there's too much you can glean from those. But what you can say is he's been in there with some of the highest level strikers in the world. Even recently, he was in there with Donovan Wise, who's I think the current Glory champion, or if not a recent Glory champion, and he held his own there, and he's been in there with some other higher level guys. So he's obviously a very good striker, and this fight's gonna be a striking fight, I would think. I mean, I've heard some people talking about Roman Kopilov's Dagestani roots and his training with wrestlers. Maybe he's gonna turn the tables and hit some takedowns here, and I do feel like Almeida's takedown defense is terrible. But he's good at getting up against the fence, and ultimately, I just don't think Kopylov is going to wrestle here offensively. He's gotten really good with his defensive wrestling. But man, I don't think he's really getting too many takedowns against those Dagestani guys in camp. It's probably all him defending takedowns. So I just don't see him bringing out that offensive wrestling bag here on Almeida. I think it's going to be stand-up fight. And it should be a good fight on the feet. I mean, Kopylov is no joke in the stand-up. The guy's really dynamic, great kicks, nasty jab, pretty solid southpaw boxing. Obviously, he has that power. Almeida, he's more methodical, but he has nasty leg kicks. He picks his punches well, has big punch power. And I feel like his pressure and experience in the striking, he's going to be the more consistent striker. He's going to be walking Kopylov down. I think he's going to do damage with the leg kicks. And I feel like Kopilov's going to start withering a little bit, and Almeida's going to get his timing and pick it up. And I think Almeida's going to start to take over the striking realm. And ultimately, I think Kopylov isn't going to have the ability to mix it up to get the win here. I think Cesar could even clinch up Kopylov and be the better guy in the clinch as well, potentially. But I'm leaning towards Cesar Almeida to get this win here. He's a little bit older. He has to start going now and accumulate these W's to get to these bigger paydays. And we've seen these kickboxers at 185, man. They've been doing really well when they've transitioned over. I feel like Almeida's getting a good matchup here. He's getting a striker. And I feel like he's probably going to be able to get the win. I think he can get the finish in the second or third once again. Could even be a decision win. I mean, Kopylov has never been finished with strikes. He's really durable, so it's going to be interesting to see if he could finish him, but either way, I'm going to go with Almeida for the W. And kicking off the main card, we got a banger with Randy Brown taking on Oleksiejczuk, Zaleski dos Santos, two of the more underrated welterweights in the weight class. And it's funny, I feel like Zaleski, man, like I've been talking about this guy for years, like 5, 6 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, just talking about this guy, saying he's a beast, he's underrated, he's one of the better welterweights in the world. And it's like he had to wait till he's almost 40 years old for people to finally catch on. And after his last fight with Hinat, after the win over Benoit, people are finally saying, oh, Zaleski's a dark horse, this guy's a beast, this guy's underrated. But it's like, dude, y'all should have been on Zaleski a couple years ago, pushing him when he was more in his prime. He had more of a chance to do something in the weight class. Now he's a little bit older. I think he's a little bit washed up, honestly. And it's like people are coming in on him now, putting money on him and betting on him. And I feel like they kind of missed the boat. I feel like this is a good fight for Randy Brown, honestly. Randy Brown's been looking really good recently. Younger, he's 33. He's right in his prime. He's going to be the longer, more athletic guy. And Zaleski's style, I think this is a tough style matchup for Zaleski. You look at Zaleski, he has that capoeira background, throws a lot of those fancy kicks, but I don't think he's going to be that effective with his kicking game on a guy like Randy Brown. He doesn't throw low kicks. He doesn't throw a lot of body kicks. It's a lot of kicks to the head. He has that front kick to the body, but it's going to be tough to find the range with that. And leg kicks are historically what you need to beat Randy Brown. And Zaleski doesn't really throw very many leg kicks at all in his fight. So I don't think he's going to implement that into his game at this stage. I think we know what he's going to bring. And what Zaleski brings is he has those kicks on the outside, but he doesn't even throw a ton of kicks anymore recently. It's more blitzing in with that big right hand, trying to catch you with the 1-2s. He closes that gap quick, and when he connects, he has big power. And obviously, if you sit in the pocket with him, they call him the God of War for a reason. The guy's going to stand there and brawl with you. He used to be a lot more durable. I think now his durability is waning a little bit. You see him getting hurt in these fights. He's gotten finished by the leech, but he still has that indomitable spirit. And you're going to have to put him out to finish him. And he has elite cardio. So he's just in that brawl, throwing 100 strikes in one round, and he's not going to get tired. He's just going to be there. But closing that gap, trying to land a 1-2, blitzing in on a guy like Randy Brown, trying to land a big right hand, it's going to be tough. I mean, we've seen Brown do really well with that style. He's beaten multiple guys that have that same game plan that Zaleski's going to have, like Chaos Williams. Even his last fight with Muslim Selkec, it was a similar style matchup where Muslim and Zaleski had a very close striking fight. Randy Brown blew Muslim out the water and finished him in the first round. And Randy Brown is nasty power, man. If he lands a 1-2, he lands some big strikes on Zaleski's chin. I don't think Zaleski's going to be able to take those. I think he might get taken out in the first round. And even if he doesn't, I just feel like Randy Brown, his head movement, his ability to control distance, his dynamic striking, he's a little bit, he mixes it up more with the kicks. Nowadays, he's more fun to watch, I feel like, as a striker, whereas Zaleski, he just brings that war. It might not be as aesthetically pleasing, not as technical, and I just feel like Randy Brown's going to avoid getting hit with big shots and be able to counter and land all night. And I honestly think Randy's going to get the first round finish, but if he doesn't, I still think he can win a decision here. I just don't think Zaleski brings a lot of the things that Randy Brown is going to struggle with. He isn't going to wrestle. He isn't going to try to press Randy, I don't believe. He doesn't have that super great pressure style like that. And even if he does, he's not going to have the technical pressure to avoid getting hit and back Randy up, I don't believe. And ultimately, I don't think that at distance, he's going to be able to close that gap and land that shot on Randy that changes the fight. I feel like Randy's going to be able to point fight him when he needs to, land the big shots when Zaleski commits, and either knock him out or win a clean decision. So give me Randy Brown in this one to get the victory. And this next fight, I mean, what is there really to say about this one? Alexander Romanov looking really out of shape again this week. If the pictures that he's posting are recent photos, it looks like he, kind of fucked off the training camp again, which you never want to see. So it makes him almost untrustworthy completely. But Jailton Almeida, I mean, he's coming off that really bad look with Curtis Blades, where got the takedown but didn't do anything with it in the first round, and then got finished in the second in a very odd finish where it kind of made it seem like Almeida's chin is very questionable. So you got these two guys going in that are they fight similar. When they win, they take their opponent down and smash them in the first round, usually get that early finish. Almeida's definitely in shape. He's gone 5 rounds. He's proven that he has the cardio. He's probably the better athlete, smoother striker, but he's a lot smaller, and we've seen if Romanov can clip him or get on top of him and rain some strikes down, he can maybe get him out of there for sure. But Romanov, we've seen when he gets put on his back is, against Volkov, looked horrible. And I just don't know what to expect from a guy like Romanov. So I feel like Almeida has to be the prediction here. We just haven't seen too many guys really go in there and look to take Romanov down like that. I mean, is Almeida going to be successful with that? If he is, I think he could probably finish him on the ground. And if it stays standing, I slightly favor Almeida. But weird fight. I mean, the line is real wide. So to me, I just wouldn't be interested in this one. But if I'm forced to make a prediction, I'll predict Almeida wins this one via submission. And up next, we got Kevin Holland versus Michał Oleksiejczuk. And Michał, he got ran through in his last fight against Misha Pereira. And even since coming down to 185, he hasn't really moved into the position he probably has wanted to be. He's still kind of that middling guy in the weight class, but he's fun to watch. He's dangerous. and almost every time he gets a win, it's going to be a finish. So definitely people are going to be excited when they see Oleksiejczuk on the card. And his opponent, Kevin Holland, another guy that's kind of 50-50 fighter. He has a decent record in the UFC, but when he fights a pretty good opponent, it's kind of a 50-50 proposition if he gets the win, but he's going to go in there, he's going to talk, he's going to entertain, it's going to be fun from the build-up to the fight to the post-fight. So it's going to be an entertaining fight right here. And Michał Oleksiejczuk, Polish powerhouse guy, he's pretty much first round or bust. He has 6 first round finishes in the UFC. His one win he had via decision was a controversial split over Modestas Bukauskas. And he also won a decision over Khalil Roundtree, but he failed a drug test in that one and it got turned into a no contest. But this is a hard fight in that sense for Michał because Holland has never been knocked out. He got finished the one time with the broken hands, but Oleksiejczuk historically, when he can't knock you out in the first round, he struggles. But you look at it, Oleksiejczuk, usually when he loses, it's via submission. He's been subbed 5 times. He's 18-2 in fights where he doesn't get submitted. But we all know Michał's style at this point. He's a southpaw boxer. He's going to bring the pressure, rip the body, throw bombs. He pushes a really crazy pace. He's good at cutting the cage off, making it a brawl. And he has no problems taking damage to walk fighters down. And we've seen him come through being hurt very badly to still win. He has sharp hands. He could slip and rip. He attacks the body. He has big power in his left hand. And that range is just kind of there, though, to be hit with knees and kicks. He got ran through really quick versus Michel Pereira. He got hurt with body kicks and then choked out. And he's super durable, so most of the time, even when you hurt him, going submission to finish is the smarter option. He's only been stopped via strikes 1 time, and that was almost 10 years ago. After the first round, pressure and volume-wise, though, Michał slows down. He is 5-1 in decisions, though, so if you can't stop him, usually his forward pressure is good enough to get the judge's decision. But Michał is not a good grappler. His wrestling has definitely leveled up. He's gotten a lot harder to take down, but if you put him on his back, you could submit him. And 4 times he's been subbed in the UFC. Holland, he's a black belt, so if he can hurt Michał, force a bad shot, he could snatch the neck. And if he gets on top, he could get the finish. If Michał gets hurt or tired and tries to take Holland down, Holland could get a submission from his full guard here because Michał is not really great on the ground. But it's more than likely going to be a stand-up fight here. Holland, he's bumping back up to 185. He had 3 years at 170 where he got some good wins, but he couldn't get over the hump and kind of still is a gatekeeper at 170 or 185, but super long. He's going to have a 7-inch reach advantage in this fight, and he's awkward. He's hard to fight on the feet. He stays active. A lot of touching kicks to the legs, front kicks. Stays busy with the jab. He's good at feinting the jab. He'll throw 1-2s or 1-1-2s. Okay check hook. And he's always cocked and ready to land that counter cross. He has solid power. He can put fighters to sleep with 1 punch, 1 kick. He's good at getting fighters off their game with his defense, with his antics. Defensively, he uses his length, his athleticism to evade shots. He will shoulder roll and use techniques you don't really see too often in MMA, but he's effective with them. He could switch stance. He's good at not letting himself get backed up, and striking has been Holland's thing during his career, and most of the time when you give him a striker, he's going to piece them up or knock them out. But his last 2 fights, he fought strikers and lost the striking battles, so mentally, we're going to see if that affects Holland, but I think he's going to be ready to scrap. And Holland is a black belt. He's a solid grappler. His wrestling and comfortability to just lay on his back have cost him fights, but that's not going to be an issue in this matchup. Holland doesn't really have a takedown threat, but if he can hurt Michał and then snatch the neck, he has gotten several submissions that way. And cardio-wise, he has the much better cardio. So Holland, I would try to attack the body, maybe even try to let Michał punch himself out a bit as you slightly evade his shots and then pick it up in the second and third. But I think Holland by decision or submission are kind of the way to attack this fight. I think Michał could maybe win in round 1, but it's unlikely. Even if it goes to decision and it's close, I think Holland will edge it. And I think Holland could maybe hurt him and submit him. But Give me Kevin Holland here, and I'll officially predict he wins via second round sub. And up next here in the co-main event, we got Sean Strickland. He's making his first comeback return since losing the belt to Dricus du Plessis in that controversial split decision, and taking on Paulo Costa, who hasn't, I guess he did win against Luke Rockhold, but only 1-1 since his comeback, but definitely has made some noise and kind of brought himself back up to the forefront of the division. Even though he lost to Whitaker, it raised the stock, and now he's in a fight with Sean Strickland where it's could potentially be perceived as a number one contenders fight here. And great matchup. I mean, these guys have been kind of linked to fight for years now. They've been talks back and forth where they both have called each other out and talked shit about each other on social media, but the stars finally aligned for them to fight now, and it's going to go down on Saturday night. And great time for both guys to fight. They're going to be hungry. They're coming off close losses to fighters that are right at the top of the heap in the division. So they both likely feel like they're right there. Strickland already the champ. You know, he got the taste of that big money. He's going to want to get back to that. And Paulo Costa, he already gets paid big money, but he's going to be wanting to cash those, you know, even bigger checks, get the strap, legacy, and all that. And matchup-wise, this should be an awesome matchup. I mean, these guys are going to go in there and strike, and it's going to be fun to watch. And they're going to be fighting completely different styles. You look at Sean Strickland, he brings that consistency. He's going to be high volume. He's going to be really, 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 really good defensively. I mean, one of the best defensive strikers that the UFC has seen. His kick defense, you know, he's checking everything. He has great ability to slip punches, parry punches. That Philly shell is just impenetrable, it seems like at times. And Dricus du Plessis was getting off some nice body kicks, so Paulo Costa is going to see that and try to replicate that. But Strickland is really tough, man. I mean, unless you hit him with the perfect shot to the body, you're not going to finish him with body kicks. And he's going to be bringing that forward pressure. He's going to be throwing the 1-2s, the jab, and just staying right in your face with combinations and boxing, while also being extremely difficult to hit. So it's frustrating to fight him. With Paulo Costa, he's going to be much more kick heavy. You know, Paulo doesn't have the hands to compete with Strickland. I mean, he's going to be throwing a big bomb here or there, but really the majority of his offense is going to be coming through his legs. He's going to be throwing a lot of, in my opinion, body kicks. He's going to mix in the head kicks. And we've seen Strickland knocked out with the spin kick before, and Paulo in his last fight threw an extremely fast spin kick that almost took Robert Whitaker's head clean off. So Strickland needs to be very careful with that. But this being a 5-round fight, I think that does favor Sean Strickland. I think he's going to have the ability to kind of pace Paulo down the stretch. Although Paulo, you know, in his one fight with Marvin that went 5 rounds, he was really good in the 5th round. He won that round. I feel like Strickland is going to be more consistent with his offense through 5. Paulo he'll still be high volume because when he goes, he does go on combination and he'll throw quite a bit. He likes to go to the body also. But Paulo fights in bursts where he's, you know, starting and stopping. Sometimes he's throwing these one-shot attacks. And I feel like Strickland's going to be in his face. He's not going to let him breathe. He's going to be keeping the jab right in his face, and the length is going to be a factor. I think Paulo's going to be missing a lot, and I think the strikes that Paulo does land, they aren't going to be impactful enough to back up and stop the pressure that Strickland's going to be bringing, and I feel like Strickland is just going to be backing up Paulo and throwing more volume. It's going to be a fun fight to watch. I think it's closer than the line indicates, just because it's going to be in the eye of the beholder kind of fight. I mean, a lot of Sean Strickland fights, it's like that, but he doesn't have that crazy power. So it's kind of volume and pressure versus power. And Paulo could land some dynamic kicks and kind of maybe the more flashy strikes throughout the fight that muddy up the scorecards. But I feel like Strickland is just going to be a little bit cleaner, more technical on the feet. And that's going to get him the job done here over 5 rounds. So Strickland via decision is going to be the prediction for me. And finally, we got the main event. We got Islam Makhachev, the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world right now, defending his throne against Dustin Poirier, one of the best lightweights of all time. If you look at it, he's probably in the top 5. So big time matchup. This is a legacy fight. If Dustin Poirier could win this fight, he's going to catapult himself into, one of the maybe top 20 greatest UFC fighters of all time talk. I think it would definitely make his resume complete. But it's a tough task, man. I mean, minus 700 is Islam Makhachev, and that just shows how dominant he is. I mean, to be minus 700 against a guy like Dustin Poirier is pretty insane. And he's just been on a tear, man, since that one loss that he had to Adriano Martins. He just ran through everyone, showing improved striking with that head kick knockout. And some people were giving him some shit. He defended against 45ers in his first few defenses, but now he's taking on a legit 155-pound guy in Dustin Poirier. And he's a big favorite for a reason, man. I mean, I picked Dustin Poirier to beat Benoit Saint-Denis. I think a lot of people were definitely counting him out in that fight, and he was able to go in there and get the job done over a guy that was inexperienced, that was a little reckless. He caught him, finished him in the second round, but we still had to see Dustin come through adversity where he got his back taken, got dominated in the first round. One thing I did like to see out of Dustin that I thought was a big improvement is he was way more composed in those bad positions than I've seen him previously. I don't know if it was because the threat from Benoit Saint-Denis was just a lot lower than maybe what we're going to see from Islam, and maybe we'll see some of those bad old habits come back when Islam takes his back of Dustin panicking and things like that. But Dustin, he needs to bring that same composure in bad spots in this fight that he had in that fight, because he's more than likely going to get put in some bad positions. But man, I mean, there's something to be said about rolling the dice and having one final opportunity. There's nothing to lose for Dustin. He's going to be going out there. He's going to be throwing big bombs. It's going to be southpaw versus southpaw. So I think he's going to be looking to tear up Islam's legs with low kicks and throw heat, man. And I think he's going to be trying to push the pace, be in great shape, pressure Islam. And obviously, we all know, if you shoot a takedown on him, he's probably going to force some guillotines. Which I don't see him getting or being effective getting him at all in this fight, but more than likely we're going to see him jump a few guillotines. But Dustin, I mean, we know what we're going to get out of him at this point, right? He's going to come in with the same game plan. He's going to have the boxing, southpaw boxing, slick. If he could back up Islam, get into an exchange, hey, he's going to have a great chance to knock him out, but he's not going to bring in anything new, which I think is going to be the difference in the fight. Dustin, I think, honestly could change it up and really shock a lot of people and could make the fight closer if he had faith in his offensive wrestling, but I don't think he's going to do that. I mean, I think both of these guys are going to be throwing a lot of low kicks, but the difference is going to be with Dustin throwing his leg kicks, Islam is going to be able to close that gap and take him down off the leg kicks and counter with punches off the leg kicks, whereas Dustin, he could counter with some punches, but he's not going to have the ability to take Islam down off the kicks, which I think is going to give Islam more carte blanche to throw leg kicks. And I think he's going to be effective in the striking and do well there. I feel like he's not going to be reckless like Benoit Saint-Denis. He's not going to give Islam or Dustin those openings to land big punches. And I think he's going to wrestle hard early. I do feel like Dustin is going to surprise people with this grappling defense. I don't think he's going to get submitted right away early when he gets taken down or anything like that. I think he's going to be able to survive a little bit. We've seen someone that trains with Dustin pretty frequently in Thiago Moises go rounds with Islam and actually give him a decent fight. So I think that Dustin is going to be aware of, some of the things that Islam likes to do on the ground and be able to at least defend those. But I think Dustin's going to be taken down a lot, and his cardio is going to be on point. I looked at his camp. I mean, it seems like he's just doing all conditioning for this camp, trying to get in the best shape he can and bringing those skills that he has. But it's just a bad matchup, man. I mean, Islam is going to be able to take him down. He's going to be able to control him, and he's probably going to end up submitting Dustin. Even on the feet, I feel like Islam is going to be competitive. He's going to do a lot better potentially than what people are envisioning. And obviously against anyone in the world, Dustin has that puncher's chance. He could land a big bomb and get Islam out of there. I think he's going to be in optimal shape and give himself the best chance to do it. But I got to go with Islam, man. I mean, the guy's the big favorite for a reason. I think stylistically, this is one of his easier matchups that he has in terms of a big name opponent. Big marquee fight, but not the hardest fight. So I got Makhachev winning this one via submission, more than likely in the later rounds. I think Dustin's going to hang around. He might have a couple spots, but Islam's going to be able to fight through that and get the win. I think Islam's still getting better, man. I mean, I think he's still going to show some improvements in his striking, just ability to blend his full MMA game together, whereas I think Dustin is kind of at that tail end. One thing I do think people are putting too much stock into, like I heard DC talking about it and some other prominent people, is the retirement talks from Dustin. I mean, he says that every fight, man. If you really go and listen to all his fights, you listen to the interviews talking about, he said we're going to have to see and things like that. He says that in every single fight. So I don't think it's necessarily that significant that they're bringing up the retirement talks with Dustin. I think he's going to come in there and give it his best performance, but I just feel like it's going to not be enough. So Islam, I mean, minus 700. I mean, what are you going to do with that? To me, there's no value there. Even him by submission is like real short odds. It's like, I think minus 125 or something, which that sucks too. So probably not a lot of value. I mean, maybe throw some money on Dustin and have some fun if you want to go USA, or just go with the fun action fighter. But I think Islam's probably going to get the job done in that one. So yeah, guys, there you have it. That's a full card breakdown and predictions video for UFC 302. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Like I said at the beginning of the video, hit that like button, subscribe. If you're not subscribed, comment down below. Let's try to get some interaction on this video. I'd really appreciate it. It helps the channel grow. And if you want access to more content like this for other promotions, then definitely check out patreon.com/PredictionGuru, where over 270 units track lifetime, which is 11th in the world, I believe, for non-reckless bettors on BetMMA tips, close to that top 10. So coming for that top 10 ranking. And yeah, man, join the team, come make some money. Patreon.com/PredictionGuru. You'll get some of the best tips from one of the best bettors giving advice for MMA currently on the internet, and you're helping support this channel. So definitely appreciate all that. As far as my most confident pick in my parlay of the week goes for this fight card, for my most confident pick on the card, I guess I'll go with Islam. Kind of a cop-out, but I feel like there's not a lot of super confident spots I have on this card. The odds for Islam, even minus 700, like I was saying, even though he's my most confident pick, I don't know if there's much value there. But if I give you guys a parlay of the week, my parlay of the week would be Randy Brown and Andre Lima. So you're getting a nice little plus money parlay there. So go put that in. You're going to make some money on that this weekend. And besides that, man, let's have some fun watching these fights, and I'll talk to you guys later.